Can you have a relationship that is successful without any chemistry? Or can you just have a relationship that's just built on compatibility? That's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Michelle Pava, and you're listening to The Muddy Path. Please visit muddypath.org, where you can connect for weekly Zen. Now, let's talk about this, okay? So if we are, in fact, looking at relationships, most people will say that you have to have a relationship that has some kind of chemistry. And there's some people that say you have to have chemistry to even think about a relationship. You have to be attracted. You have to have excitement. And I'm going to debunk that. Now, what we call chemistry on a superficial level is really just lust, right? It's just lust. It sounds a lot nicer to say, oh, I met someone and we have chemistry, than saying, oh, I met someone and I'm hot for them, or, oh, I met someone and I lust them. So if you lust someone or you feel like you're hot and bothered over someone, that's really what you're calling chemistry, right? Or it could also be the feeling of you met that person and you've known them forever. You just feel like you met a kindred spirit. And you have so much to talk about. You feel like they know you in and out, and you can't get over it. It seems magical, too good to be true. Well, there's different levels of chemistry, and we're going to talk about two specifically. So the number one is the lust, and the number two we really have to worry about, because that feeling of knowing someone forever, while it might be that you do have a lot in common, which would go into compatibility and will not feel like a passionate, excited rush, it will feel like a comfortable space where there's boundaries, where you take it slow. That's what would be very healthy. But a lot of people, when they say, oh, I met someone and we have so much in common and blah, 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 what they're really doing is they're diving in really quickly, and boundaries are being broken very, very quickly, and you're sharing vulnerabilities very quickly. And what that normally is a toxic person or a narcissistic person, which is also toxic, but you're going to have someone who is trying to take advantage of you in some way, shape, or form, usually physically, sometimes emotionally, often also financially. So this is what it will look like. They will meet you and they will start mirroring you, meaning mirroring the way you speak, your movements, the way you type, whatever it is, however you're meeting. And they will keep an intensity up that's just one step ahead of you. So if you're thinking about them and your norm would be to text somebody once or twice a day, they're probably going to start texting 3 or 4 times a day. And so they always stay a step ahead. That way you're getting used to them connecting with you, and they're giving you a little dopamine rush each time, and you're starting to feel like they really get you, they're really into you, you feel good about yourself, and they become like a drug. And so this mirroring, and also what they're also doing is they're picking up on your vulnerabilities, because all of this conversation that's happening faster and faster and faster is also more and more exposing, more vulnerable, very quickly, not in a slow, healthy, outlying kind of way. It is very quickly. So when this is happening and it's going very quickly, what they're doing is they're getting ammunition. And this is why intense relationships that start out very quickly suddenly fizzle out or become very dramatic or betraying. And this is why they're very painful when they end. So these are what we call chemistry. Like, right? This is what we call chemistry when we meet someone and we're talking to them all of the time. And you feel like they know you and you're able to share everything and they accept you and they're not judging you until they're judging you, right? So until it blows up. So this is why I say it is much better to meet someone who you are compatible with. So if you're compatible with someone, you will develop a passion and a trust and a love that will be slow, not as intense, but it will be deeper. It will not be a superficial, and I'm using air quotes, chemistry that people talk about. And even that lust in the beginning. So I want to go back to that. If you feel like this lust and passion for someone early on, regardless of if it's just the way they look or if it's that they're giving you attention and you can't believe so-and-so great looking is giving you attention or whatever it is. That is also a dangerous path because that is a very superficial connection. And often, because we want to keep that lust going, that passion going, we will put up with a lot of red flags. And then at a certain point, you start feeling like it's not worth it. Like they're good looking, but they're not so good looking that you should be able to, you should be sacrificing everything. So what happens is we find out later on, and you often hear people saying, they're good looking, but they're ugly on the inside. That's a common phrase of someone who was caught up in the lust in the beginning. So it's not so much that they were ugly on the inside, it's just that things moved really quickly, and it was built on what we call chemistry, which is either mirroring or manipulation, like I talked about earlier, or lust. So if you build a relationship on passion, however, a passion that is built from, now I don't mean a sexual passion, but a passion that is built from a compatibility, there are sets of hormones that will be released over time, slowly but surely. Well, I shouldn't say slowly but surely because it's not necessarily slow, but it's not intense and quick where it's too quick. So it's just at a normal, healthy rate that you get to know someone and you get to find them attractive. And this is where you're now looking at them through not rose-colored glasses, but through a very clear lens. And you know the person and you trust the person and you open up to them in due time as you get to know that they are a trustworthy person. And this honestly happens so often where people will say, this relationship isn't working out. I've been trying so hard. They're emotionally distant. They're a narcissist. They're this, they're that. And really, when you go into, well, how did this relationship begin? If it began on lust or it began because you were being love bombed, I'm not saying it's your fault. But I'm not saying it's their fault. It's because there were boundaries that were not being upheld on both ends, for both parties. Now, sometimes people are just manipulated and used and you don't see it and you were blindsided. I totally get that. I'm not talking about you if you are a true victim of that. But in a traditional relationship, this could be happening. So this is why I say go for the compatibility. Now, I'm going to tell you my story. My story is that my father was unwell. He had a car accident, which rendered him to be much more vulnerable physically throughout his life. And he had this car accident actually a year before I was born. So I was born into a family where my father often didn't feel well. He was often irritable. There were financial struggles at different parts of my childhood. My mother was just working morning, noon, and night to help put food on the table and to help my father. My father was often also emotionally distant through no fault of his own. Well, maybe some. He just got used to everything was about his pain, his agony. And so I didn't get a lot of what I needed developmentally from my father, who was physically present in the home, but emotionally checked out. He was emotionally all about himself. And so, what do you think happened to me developmentally as I'm growing up? I find it to be challenging then to go after the guy who is sort of interested in me, but I have to kind of work at getting his attention, and he may be very interested in me and asking me out, and we might be dating. However, that being said, what ends up happening is he's, to me, more emotionally distant, or he has his own life and he's not really caring that much about me. So all of that's happening, but I think it's normal to constantly chase after love, to constantly feel like I'm not getting enough, even through no fault of the other person. Maybe the other person was doing all the healthy things, but I was feeling like I just could not get enough love because I felt like I never knew when the other shoe was going to drop, because at home, I never had enough love. So if you never had enough love and you're used to being sort of sacrificed or being put on a shelf, you're always waiting for that moment where you're being put on a shelf. So that started happening, where that was just the theme of my relationships. After that, what was happening is that when I started the healing process, started finding healthy relationships completely boring. So when I would meet someone, if there wasn't that rush of chemistry or excitement, I would feel like this is a boring relationship. Why would I want to pursue this? Why is this person even asking me out when there's no sparks? I didn't understand what that was. But then I understood later in my healing, as I progressed in my healing, that someone getting to know me and respect me and give me a certain level of attention that was beautiful, but not overdone, was very new and eye-opening to me. And I got used to it. And when I started getting used to being treated with complete respect, with boundaries, and I started seeing that boring wasn't boring, it was content. It was confident. It was affirming, and it was reciprocal. So it wasn't like a chase or, the sparks flying all about lust. It was so much deeper than that. And this is why I want to share this with you. We often will have experiences where we see something in front of us and we're not used to it, but it's because our trauma is keeping us from the healthy thing. Sometimes that happens. And our healing process is where we begin to get a glimpse of it, but we have to continue with that healing process. And it all comes back to our truth. To have our truth and to understand that what that means for us is our truth is before the trauma, before the neglect, before the parents compensating for whatever they're going through or overcompensating for whatever they're going through. That's where our truth is. So when we have a relationship, our truth is not about just sparks flying or the superficial chemistry. It's about a compatibility and someone respecting us and someone understanding who we are and accepting us for who we are as we accept them. And there's no games. And yeah, the chemistry isn't there because the trauma's not there. And it's not superficial and it's not manipulation. But what is there is compatibility, trust, and a passion that is so much deeper than a superficial fling or a superficial lust. And that passion makes us want to have more of a relationship with that person, not a game, not a chase. We're not sitting waiting for that person to notice us. We just automatically know whether the person's busy or doing their own thing or whatever. We just know it's there. And there is a different level of passion that comes with that type of relationship. And that's where, you can get married. Trust me, you can have chemistry with someone and have all the lust and fireworks and get married. But I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of relationships where those types of relationships, while they may last, are not always happy. But the relationships where the people are really friends and there's a compatibility and trust and a passion, because passion comes and goes, right? Sparks can come and go, but the compatibility has to be there. And compatibility will always have some level of passion. And it's a mindset. So if you're with someone on a romantic level and they're your person and you're their person and you have compatibility and loyalty and trust and all of that, you're going to have some level of passion, although the passion can come and go. But if the relationship starts with sparks, you don't always have trust. You don't always have compatibility. You may be betrayed and you might be hurt, more often than not. But the thing is, when you have compatibility and trust and loyalty, you're less likely to be hurt by your partner. And even when there's breakups, because breakups happen, even if you're compatible, it can happen. If you're having a breakup with someone that trusts you and loves you and cares about you, even if there was a fracture at the end of the relationship, they are going to treat you with much more respect, and you will do the same. But in the relationships that start with a lot of drama and fireworks and sparks and intensity, they end very much the same way, and they're often roller coaster relationships in the interim. So it doesn't feel that different. But what happens at the end is there's usually a lot of betrayal and a lot of drama because they thrive off of it, and they're bringing you into that web. And your trauma might be bringing you into that web. So I urge you that if you are single and looking for a relationship, to please start with the compatibility and the taking things slow. And when you feel things going fast and intense, try to pull back. And if the person is respectful of you without you even having to say it, if you start to pull back, but they stay connected to you, but they also give you that space, then you know they respect you. But if they sort of drop off because you don't want the intensity and they sort of flutter to someone else or just flutter away from you, then consider yourself lucky. You didn't lose them. You lost the drama and you lost the pain that might have come with that relationship. Now, if you're married or partnered with someone and it did start like that and you are in a roller coaster, it's really important then to work on your trauma and maybe the other person to work on their trauma. You can still grow as a couple and grow as individuals by working on your own self before you even think about couples therapy. If you want to go to couples therapy, go for it. But I think it's much more important to work on yourself as an individual to know your truth before you even step into couples therapy. And if you're in a relationship where it's a little roller coastery, maybe not, maybe it started with lust and passion and all of that, the superficial passion, not the deep passion. Maybe it started with those sparks and you're in a relationship, but you're not quite sure. You think you could be happier, or maybe you're at the brink of a breakup and you wanted to stay somewhere. Then again, work on yourself and urge the other person to work on themselves as well. But do not do the blame where, well, you're the one doing X, Y, and Z, so you go to therapy. No. You have to get support as well. So on that, if you're interested, I have a program on my site. Even if you go to muddypath.org, you're going to get information on it. I have a free course called Happy Again. It's to help you to release your suffering and get in touch with it. You want to be comfortable with it, but not invited in to sit on the couch and to pick out curtains, right? You want to just be aware of it. And it's also going to help you to unearth what really makes you happy and to get happy again in your life. So I would love for you to go to muddypath.org and go ahead and sign up for my weekly Zen. And also you'll get access to the free course, Happy Again. And in that, you will be able to start working on your relationships as well, your relationship with yourself, which is the most important, as well as the relationships in your life.